As I mentioned, we're going to do some quick introductions of our team. You'll be seeing us at different points in this project during school visits, during data collection activities. So we want to make sure you know who we are and what we're up to. We also talk about our approach, the way that we're going to go about collecting data and the multitude of ways that we're asking for your input as part of this process. You will notice that we have the chat opportunity for you, the chat option for you to be able to provide comments to us. We, at the end of this, will address some of those questions, the ones that we are able to in the moment. But I also wanted to highlight that Frederick County Public Schools will be producing in support with PCG the Q&A document. So that will be coming up after the session. You will hear from each of us tonight. We're each going to be taking a part of this presentation. As I mentioned, my name is Dr. Jennifer Miller. I've been with Public Consulting Group for about 11 years. The bulk of my work, the core of it, is focused on evaluations such as this. We have worked in over 24 states throughout the country, as well as worked in Maryland and understand the specific regulations and local context as well. I started my career with the School District of Philadelphia, where I was a director for the last few years. I was there in the special education department and also spent some time in the finance office. You will hear throughout the course of this project that we come to this work as practitioners. Many of us spent time in schools as school leaders, and so that we hold that very close to the way that we operate and the way that we see and understand programming. Matthew, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Scott. I am a senior consultant with Public Consulting Group. I am one of the project team members that's part of this work. I support our special education consulting work nationally, conducting reviews such as this for the past 5 years alongside Dr. Meller, as well as Mary Baker-Budisa and our other colleague, Moria. I support this work from a project management, research, and data analysis perspective. So you'll be seeing a lot of, likely some of my outreach, encouraging participation in some of our stakeholder surveys, as well as participation in some of our stakeholder focus groups and interviews.
Thank you. Dr. Ulick?
Good evening. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Maria Ulick. And I'm very excited to be a part of this project first and foremost because I have been born and raised in Maryland. And so I'm really looking forward to participating in this work alongside our team and alongside our team here in Frederick County Public Schools, as well as getting to know all of the participants here on the call tonight. Prior to my role as a senior advisor here in the firm, I worked for several years at a large urban school district as a director overseeing the evaluation work, particularly with a focus on eligibility determination and IEP development, as well as developing best practices. I've also previously taught inclusion in early childhood, and as a senior advisor here within the firm, I partner with Dr. Miller, Matthew, and Mary, working around the country to conduct reviews as well as provide implementation support for large and small districts.
Great, thank you. And Mary?
Good evening, everyone. I'm really pleased to be with you. My name is Mary Baker-Budisa, and I am an equity and inclusion specialist. One of the things that I do as part of this work is support stakeholder engagement. And so in my sphere of expertise and experience around education, research, and culturally responsive practices in schools, then I work with the team, these esteemed colleagues, to conduct focus groups, interviews, and also prepare recommendations around how to enhance engagement with every stakeholder in every aspect of the program. And so I appreciate being able to talk with you this evening and get to know you all throughout this process.
Thank you, Mary. I wanted to provide for you a brief background of who we are as a firm, Public Consulting Group. We've been doing work in the public sector. Almost all of our work, 99.9% of our work is in the public sector, and we've been doing that since 1986. So really have spent a considerable amount of time focused on all of the public sector consulting and operations functions within health, education, and human services. We have about 2,500 staff located across the United States and also internationally. We are used to coming to projects where we are actively engaged with stakeholders. We are wanting to hear diverse opinions, and that is part of the partnership to make this project work. We know that that means lots of conversations and lots of listening. That is a big part of this work. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means when we get to the next portion of the phases of the work. We partner with about over 4,000 school districts in the United States with a variety of projects, from Medicaid reimbursement to special education case management systems, as well as projects like the one that we're embarking on with Frederick County Public Schools. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Ulick, who's going to start to talk through this part of the project.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm looking forward to sharing with you some key elements of our work to really contextualize what you could anticipate in terms of the evaluation and also moving forward. And so first, we'd like to share with you that we have a series of special education effectiveness domains. There are 6 of these, and we'll walk through each of these right now. The first being human capital, and that really is focused on staffing, as well as considering everything related to human capital support from recruitment through retirement. We'll also examine the district's high expectations for students with disabilities, particularly from the lens of increasing expectations of students with disabilities by presuming competence. We'll examine existing systems and structures in Frederick County Public Schools, specifically by identifying expectations around service delivery, how resources are allocated, and most importantly, considering data management and infrastructure. We'll evaluate the family and community engagement component of the district as well too, specifically coordinating efforts with families and community organizations to improve results. Our 5th special education effectiveness domain is the learning environment and specialized services. We'll consider delivering instruction and interventions within an inclusionary framework, as well as IEP fidelity. And then lastly, we'll also evaluate the leadership component of our special education effectiveness domain, specifically examining the partnerships that allow us to make informed decisions and provide equitable opportunities for all students. And it's certainly very important to us to share with you that our involvement and our partnership with Frederick County Public Schools, as well as any project that we move forward with, the review is not just about identifying challenges and offering recommendations, but most importantly, it's about using this information contextually and in order to support our district partners in creating meaningful outcomes for students with disabilities. And so as we consider the framework of our special education effectiveness domains, that really drives how we approach our program reviews. And so these next few pieces of information really allow us to dig a little deeper in understanding what to anticipate as a collaborative effort towards this program review. Our reviews are collaborative by design, and most importantly, we will work side by side with the district in the development of data collection protocols, in identifying how we can partner with this work, and most importantly, identifying and developing effective outcome-driven strategies. We also will help the district to answer essential questions, or it can also be considered research questions about student progress, program effectiveness, and most importantly, use that key information to identify what's working well and then also areas for improvement. Our review approach is multidimensional in the sense that we gather both quantitative and qualitative data specifically hosting focus groups and interviews, conducting classroom visits, conducting, in some circumstances, student file reviews to better understand the IEP process, and then also analyzing a considerable amount of quantitative data such as student outcomes, results-driven accountability, and really taking the time to align our findings from a quantitative and a qualitative perspective to engage in a true mixed methods research approach. And lastly, our aim is to continue to strengthen district culture, specifically through accountable solutions. And so what does that ultimately look like? It's really promoting enhanced collaboration between stakeholders and promoting engagement. It's really positive that we have so many participants here this evening. And so this is an opportunity to further that ongoing collaborative partnership. We'll also work towards solutions that are focused on improving efforts for the special education program, as well as what would benefit students with disabilities most importantly and most meaningfully here in the district. And we'll also examine solutions from the lens of greater efficiencies. And so what findings can contribute to the district engaging in more efficient practices to further student outcomes and also collaboration. And so we have a number of research areas that we will walk through with you tonight. And so as on the previous slide, we mentioned the essential questions. So if you could just imagine that the essential questions subsequently translate into these research areas here. And so they're contextualized specifically in 3 of our 6 special education effectiveness domains. We'll also be gathering information that would align to the other domains, but our research questions or our essential questions fit more specifically in these 3. As we walk through these, we'll identify the first 4 questions related in the learning environment and specialized services. Number 1, we're going to examine in partnership, how is the district's continuum of services organized to support a free and appropriate public education for students with disabilities? To what degree do students have access to the general education curriculum, and how are inclusive practices employed? And to number 2, to what extent is there disproportionate representation? Number 3, what are current behavioral practices? Number 4, specifically, how do the following specialized programs operate? Looking at the lens of specialized self-contained programs, as well as transportation and facilities. And then when we transition into high expectations, and so this is the special education effectiveness domain that examines presuming competence of students with disabilities. And so that we will examine to what extent does Frederick County Public Schools implement a rigorous process to systematically monitor educational benefit, and how do IEP teams determine services and placement? And then our question number 6, or research question number 6, under the leadership special education effectiveness domain, how does Frederick County Public Schools organize leadership to support special education and foster a culture that is focused on improving outcomes and post-secondary preparation? So as you can see, each of these questions have been defined in a way where we will need to gather both quantitative and qualitative data to understand and inform answering these questions. And so as our teammates continue to talk through this presentation, I would encourage you to think about these research questions and any feedback or any information you'd like to include in your questions for us this evening. Thank you.
So we've broken up this work into 5 phases. We are currently in phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 really focuses around project initiation, a lot of the pre-work that goes into structuring this work, developing a project plan, coordinating with Linda and Troy related to some of our data collection activities, and identifying some upcoming dates and data collection schedules. Next week, we will actually be starting our data collection process. We will be on site and starting to observe classrooms. So we've selected a selection of different schools to observe and just to visit get a sense of programming that's taking place, be able to visit any specialized programs and classrooms that exist within the campuses. We'll spend about 3 days doing that. Additionally, we'll be conducting focus groups and interviews further in February as the weeks progress, as well as some additional data collection activities, such as a stakeholder survey and an IEP file review focused focus group. We will turn to phase 3 sometime between February and March of this year. And this is really where we'll start to put together all of the different components, complete any additional data collection activities that might not have been conducted in February and March. We'll pull all of those pieces together, and that will line us up into phase 4, where we'll develop, start to draft an initial report and deliver that to the district sometime between May and June. So I've covered the main components of phase 1 and phase 2, really working with the district to collaborate, start to identify the groups of individuals and community participants that we should be able to speak with to start to collect data, as well as getting some additional quantitative data and starting to develop our data collection schedule further. For our phase 3, really the focus here is that we want to make sure that we are engaging with a broad group of stakeholders, as well as engaging with a diverse data collection set. So we will be collecting some demographic data and information that's currently available within the district, really focusing around demographic trend analysis related to students who have IEPs in the district. We will conduct what we relate to as an inventory of promising practices, really reviewing a lot of the district's current documentation related to processes, procedures, how you're structuring your programs, and then aligning that with some of our own subject matter expertise related to best practices in special education and our work, benchmarking that with our work conducting these similar types of reviews nationwide. Related to stakeholder outreach, we will be conducting focus groups, interviews. We will be conducting classroom visits. As I mentioned, we'll be on site and getting our first data collection opportunity to get a sense of classrooms throughout the district, as well as we will be facilitating 2 surveys, one specifically for FCPS staff, and another one that's focused on our families and parents. And that will provide some rich data regarding what's working well within the district and areas for improvement. So I've covered at a high level what this will look like. Here we'll spend about 3 days conducting interviews and focus groups, and those will be conducted virtually. We will have a specific focus group where we will bring in school-based staff and those that are part of the process of creating an IEP. And we'll actually sample some student IEPs and use that as an artifact to facilitate a discussion with that group of participants to get a sense of how the file comes about, how families and parents are engaged through the process, how students are engaged in that process as well for our older students. As I did mention, we'll have our staff and parent surveys and then our 3 days of on-site classroom visits. And we'll cap that out with phase 4, which is really piecing all of the data components together to draft a report. In this phase, we will come up with our findings, our overall findings. We'll present the report in a way that both highlights things that are working well within the district and areas for improvement, and we'll identify recommendations for moving forward. We will have a stakeholder review of the preliminary report that we will share with both Troy and Linda and other pre-identified stakeholders for just any type of review related to factual inaccuracies or maybe some things that we might not have captured accurately, but a very high level review before we then finalize that report and submit that to the district. Once that report is completed, we'll move into our action planning phase, which is phase 5. And this is where we'll come together with additional stakeholder groups to be able to present the findings from the report, as well as the recommendations that were identified. We will facilitate an action planning session where we will start to unpack what those recommendations are and start to lay in some of the granular level action steps that need to be taken in order to move those recommendations from an initial planning phase through an implementation phase. And we'll put all of those components together into a plan for the district to use for future planning and implementing the recommendations. So that's a high level about how we're going to approach this work through our 5-phased approach. I will turn it over to Mary, who will take us through some additional slides related to our timeline.
Thank you, Matthew. And one of the questions that people ask is such a comprehensive report and a great process, but how do you get this all done? And so we believe in having a timeline that allows us to have maximum engagement and opportunities to collect appropriate data, as well as being able to deliver a report that meets the needs of the district in terms of planning for, for future opportunities and future years. So one of the things that we do after this kickoff is really move heavily into data collection. And as Matthew mentioned, we will be on site in Frederick County next week. And through February, we will also be engaging virtually with stakeholders to have interviews and focus groups. Our surveys will also be distributed in February, and we hope that people on the staff and among families and stakeholders will participate in those, because those inform a lot of the things that we end up looking at in the report, and there'll be a complete analysis in the report of those engagements. And then the student file review focus groups are also conducted virtually, and what that does is allow us to engage with program staff to take a look at examples of student files as a tool for discussion and really digging into processes and understanding some of the things that are happening in the district, looking at the centers of excellence and also those things that present an opportunity for improvement. And then we will present preliminary findings, as Matthew said, to a group of stakeholders in March after a rigorous writing and analysis process in the spring. And then in May and June, we will have the final report draft and any revisions that are needed so that we can prepare for an on-site action planning session and to present to the board what those findings and high-level recommendations are for the programming. And another question that people often ask is, how can we be involved, right? And we've mentioned the surveys. This is a really critical piece because it's a chance for stakeholders to share very candidly the things that that they'd like to have, have us be aware of. But it also is a chance to collect some data that can be analyzed and shared with district leadership. We hope that you'll participate in the focus groups. We do endeavor to engage with as many stakeholders as we can. And so we work very hard to provide multiple opportunities and work around diverse schedules so that we can provide engagement for members across the district, right? So from families to staff, to leadership in the district, and building level staff. So it's really important that we have your input, because this is not just a comprehensive process. It is collaborative, as Dr. Ulick mentioned, and we really want to be able to work in conjunction with the people who know this district best, who have the perspective and the experiences to really help us to understand where the opportunities are. And so we do provide an email that is just for Frederick County Public Schools that you can send to us, where we review that feedback that's provided. It is only reviewed by our team, and we use it to inform the larger report. And so please take advantage of that. We will provide that throughout the process of collecting data. so that if there's something that doesn't get captured in a focus group, then you can share that with us via that email. So.
Great. Well, that concludes our presentation this evening. I do want to pause for a few minutes to let folks know that they can complete a question and answer by sending us a question through the Q&A feature here within Zoom. So I'll pause for a moment to allow folks to start to write their questions, and then we will answer some of those questions live.
And Matthew, I will also add, as folks are submitting some questions, that this PowerPoint will be available along with, as I mentioned, the written responses to the questions. And within that PowerPoint is the full set of the research questions that align to the 6 effectiveness domains. So that will be available for everyone to take a look at.